Welcome to Seizing Valor, where we discover God's path for manhood, one conversation at a time. I'm Zack.
And I'm Joe.
And here we are again.
Here we
for
are.
everyone listening, our good buddy Josh is to take a little bit of a hiatus. I can't say words.
MIA.
Yeah, he will be MIA, but that is okay. So Joe, you were telling me before this that you were working up a sweat.
I was working up a sweat.
this
And considering that, I had to hop on right onto this call. So, couldn't shower. So, I look nice and glowy for all the right or wrong reasons, depending on perspective.
Yeah, and I also was I was doing some swimmings in the pool. We were both taking care of our bodies, but today we're going to talk about when taking care of your body can go too far.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about health being an idol.
How can we be too healthy? Joe!
First off, let's talk about health being an idol. Idols, what are they? For anybody who doesn't know, by definition, it just means something that we place above or even before prioritizing our time with God. Health and wellness, in modern society now, wellness takes a front row seat, not even just exercise, but just health and wellness in general, and just making you feel good, or putting a Band-Aid on your problems. It's not a bad thing to put a priority on our health. I want to make that disclaimer, but bowing to our flesh is dangerous. And I know somebody, maybe you're not a believer and you're automatically on the comments right now saying that maybe we're a little bit extreme for saying that. But when we put an emphasis on ourselves too much, that will manifest in some pretty dangerous behaviors. So I want to put that out there.
Yeah, 100%. There's a difference between respecting your body and taking care of your body and then idolizing your body, as you said. It's like an idol is anything that we essentially put above all other things, and we dedicate all of our time and effort and energy and money and all this stuff to it. So yeah, health definitely can become that, especially now that we're living in this health revolution. So there's like a difference, the health revolution is like there's all these things that can maximize this, that, or the other thing about your body. So, and I want to make it clear is that we're not here sitting saying that your body is bad, or that you shouldn't take care of your body. So this is what we're about to talk about is not an excuse for you to just be a slob and just be reckless with your body.
Right.
And it's not saying that the body is dumb or the body is unimportant and that only the soul matters. No, that's not what we believe either. That it's your body is a gift from God. And you are a steward of your body. You are not necessarily the owner, so to speak, of your body, but you're the steward of your body. So God gives you your body, and because it's His gift, you take care of it. But that does not mean that you put that gift above the giver, so to speak. So, so we're talking about just like how, and like anything, like it can get to the extreme. So once again, it's not about saying health's not important. It's just that it can become too important. Yeah. So, I don't know. I just feel like the thing is that, people who are in search of perfection with their body. And I think this is, as I said, this is a problem in this day and age because medicine's come so far, nutrition's come so far, all these things have come so far. And then the commercialism of all of it, like trying to promote, like you can be like the perfect human, which is a lie in certain ways, is we're all broken. So we can't be perfect. So in the Bible, it says, be perfect like your heavenly Father is perfect. But this is kind of a different thing because there's this level of trying too hard to be perfect with your body can come at the expense of your soul. And therefore you're not being perfect because then you're neglecting that. And then so there's the balance that kind of comes in.
Sure. Yeah. I would say that we have a grass is greener mentality now that we have a lot more advantages in technological innovation when it comes to nutrition and more scientific study. We do have a grass is greener mentality.
Yeah, and I think when perfect for our body is the standard, I think it actually has caused a lot of anxiety. I know I was in this space, like this idea, and I think as an athlete or as a former athlete, you can definitely fall into this because especially with sports that are like we were in a racing sport, like a cardiovascular endurance sport. So like our body was our instrument, like our
Mhm.
body was like what we used to compete with. Like, you know,
Yeah.
some sports have rackets and clubs and other equipment. Like our equipment was our body. So it was, we tried to focus on maximizing the potential of our body so that we could swim faster.
Mhm.
So it kind of gets in that mentality that your body always has to be in a state of like perfection or maximum performance potential. But it's just it's impossible to get that because our bodies are broken. Like because our bodies are broken, it's impossible to be perfect. So that when you get caught up in this thing that you think it should be perfect and then inevitably doesn't, it just leads to this constant strain of anxiety. Or like we start going to the extreme that if I'm not at top peak performance, then all of a sudden I'm breaking down. Like I'm dying, like, you know, or like I'm like I'm never going to be the same. Like I don't know. I know in my own personal experience that's kind of what I have felt, because like when
Mhm.
perfect's the standard and you fall short of perfect, then you develop a lot of anxiety.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I know I went through that year and a half ago. Still doing a little indication that every little thing that breaks, like all of a sudden you're all up in arms. You know, whether it's just
Yeah.
like a little injury or a little illness or something. It's just when your goal is perfection, you all of a sudden when one of those things think, it's just like
Yeah.
like the sky is falling. Um, thoughts on that?
Sure. I can give a pretty recent account. There are a lot of Instagram accounts that I follow that are health based. Just depends on like the food that we eat and kind of exposing a lot of the stuff that is mass produced, saying that it is not good for us for certain ingredients that they put in there. Very educational, very good. And I learned a lot, even just in the span of like 2, 3 months that I had started looking at this stuff. Um, to give you some sense of perspective, the products that they were talking about are everything with a label on it basically has something called seed oils, which have a lot of defense chemicals in there filled with linoleic acid that damage our gut and mess with the lining of our stomach. And I suppose, you know, that made me incredibly hyper aware and like saying like my whole life was a lie, because like I love um Chips Ahoy or um even saltine crackers, or you know, like these everyday things um that I had taken, you know, or eaten like for sometimes pleasure. That's the thing, sometimes pleasure.
Mhm.
Or even something like ibuprofen, you know, when you have that when I was sick, I would only have that when I was sick. And, you know, it's a blood thinner, but it also damages like our gut lining and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, I've only had like 2 of those pills when I was, you know, not feeling so hot and stuff like that. But I said, like, no, like I can't have this at all. And maybe I won't ever have it again, but still, like, that underlying message that like I had to make my body perfect. I had to make sure that I cut out like so many of these things and just like cold turkey and only go like uh grass fed, like something that's like all natural and stuff like that. While I'll still include that, it's just I have to reframe my thinking
Mhm.
uh because it just doesn't really seem long lasting. Like I need to let go that this is my earthly body, and you know, I'm still young, but I'm taking greater like of course I'm going to the dentist, I'm going to the doctors, I'm going to the chiropractor, which is good for, you know, my overall like communication of my body, sure. But this stuff I have to make sure that I let go, because a lot of it is due to pride, which is the source of all sin, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think like the biggest thing is just remembering, like everyone listening here, like there's two things that are guaranteed in this life: you will suffer and you will die. And there's no avoiding either of those things. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think a lot of us prioritize, like try to idolize health because we're trying to avoid those things or thinking that we can. Um, this thing is like everybody's going to die in some way, shape or form. It's going to happen. We are not immortal, and no matter how studied we become on medicine or nutrition or anything, we are going to die. Like that's the thing. And I guess it's trying to find that balance between like, well, I want to live a long healthy life, but I also don't want to live like forever, you know, or you can't live forever, so you shouldn't necessarily be mentally thinking like I need to
Mhm.
make myself live forever. And even this thing of like trying to avoid suffering, it's like you will suffer in this world, like you will be uncomfortable, and there's a level of you can't avoid it even if you do everything perfectly. So how much of that is like, okay, I will avoid the unnecessary suffering versus like I will avoid all suffering all the time ever.
Hmm.
And I think that's because I've heard a lot of these nutritional advice things too, and I've gotten in that mindset too of like, oh my gosh, I got to completely change my diet and I got to do
Hmm.
everything because all this stuff is just so bad. And like, but the same thing is like that can lead once again to disturbance of your peace of mind. Uh, it can distract you from prayer. It can distract you from your soul and your mind. Like, it could cause mental anxiety. So that's like now you're damaging your mind, even though you're taking care of your body. And, or it can distract from the soul because once again, we're thinking too much about, trying to elongate our body rather than like use it like
Yeah.
in that space. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. This is a really hard topic to like articulate, but it's more like, are you going to try to prolong your life forever, or are you going to try to or increase the quantity of your life, or are you going to increase the quality of your life?
Well, what
Um,
I will say to that is that even if we're coming from a good place where we're trying to take care of our body, it's easy to justify the decisions that we're making because that's what we do to ourselves. It's these little highways and byways, these decisions that we make. We justify what we are doing because it's good for us, right? It's easy to
mhm,
start justifying our decisions, our purchases when like because that's a decision. When we tell ourselves it's good for us.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I think it's like the thing is that too, people get preoccupied with like the nature of food, for example, is it is to fuel our bodies, but it is for pleasure. Like it is for the joy of eating. And then there's other things like building community and things like
Mhm.
that. Like, food has multiple purposes. It's not just health. It's like to fuel
Mhm.
our bodies correctly with health, but also like the enjoyment factor of food is important.
Right.
And so I think people have to recognize that it's okay to enjoy food. Now, you shouldn't eat only to enjoy food, but
Right.
you also shouldn't eat only for health.
Right.
Like, there's a balance between the two. You have to use them both. So, like, certain
Mhm.
people will only eat certain things because they only will eat healthy, but they don't really enjoy what they're eating, or they don't pick what they eat based on taste only.
Mhm.
Whereas then there's the other side of people who only eat based on pleasure and only eat like what will taste good and don't really give a crap about what's healthy. So it's like somewhere in the middle. You have to live a healthy overall lifestyle that's a
Mhm.
balance between the two.
Mhm.
Because like, and I think we can sometimes fall into the trap when we get health conscious. It's like with a lot of these health tips, it's like, yeah, it's not bad to live a general life based around these things. But like, for example, if you want to have ice cream because you want ice cream and it's like you don't normally, like, it's not like you're having it every day, like you can do that. It's not you drinking poison. Like it's
Yeah.
not like one time every so often, like moderation, like is you can still do that.
Yeah.
There's it's I think sometimes if we get too caught up in the health, we think that every little tiny thing that we do in the diet can be like poison. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, no, like habits kind of form poison. Like
Mhm.
unless it's actual poison. Don't drink poison, people. Like it's um
We aren't advocating for Tide Pod Challenge.
yeah, don't please. No, that's not food. The chemicals are not food. God did, just because you can eat it doesn't mean God made it as food.
Right. Right.
Um so yeah, so there's this level of you are allowed to eat for pleasure every once in a while. Like it is allowed and it can be
Mhm.
bad for you. Like you are okay. Especially if like you do it for the sake of bonding with other people. Go out and get a drink with your buddies. Go out and get ice cream with your kids. Go out and go to like a family feast that has all of the stuff at it and like don't refuse things because like if it causes strain between you and the other family, like food has more than one purpose. So that's what I guess I want to say, that there's a balance in eating,
Mhm.
and I think it's best for your peace of mind and your soul to like kind of find the balance between like the purposes of food.
So I wanted to go through if you still, based on what we've talked about, are still on the fence if this is an idol for you. I wanted to go through a couple warning signs and maybe you'll be able to, be a little bit more aware if it is or if it could be in the future.
Mm,
Sign one, that warning sign that health is an idol. it's your first thought when you wake up. How do I feel? How do I look? Looking at yourself
Mm,
in the mirror. It's a sign of vanity. A million other things as the sun starts to peek over the horizon. Sleep more, take a shower. We go to the gym. Make that healthy smoothie or break out the yoga mat. The truth is, once the day starts rolling on without God, without you starting the day without Him, and I've been guilty of this too. It easily spins out of control, out of control, because we didn't sit down to let Him pour the knowledge onto us, in all that we need to navigate, the harsh reality of the world, you know?
mhm. I definitely agree with that. This idea is like, what is the first thing when you wake up? Like, what
Mhm.
is on your mind? And that's a really good warning sign, I think. And this doesn't even, and as you're kind of pointing out, this doesn't even just have to do with food. Like what we're talking about too, in general, doesn't always just have to do with food. I mean, like, people not only have problems with this with nutrition, but like stuff like germophobia. Like this idea is like avoiding illness at all costs. And now we definitely live in this type of world because of COVID. Like, and
Mhm.
we are in the post-COVID world, and everyone is hyper afraid of illness because we developed a fear for this particular illness. Um, which, first of all, I want to say in regards to that, like people, like every illness is not COVID. Like, and even, I mean, I'm not a scientific expert, but like even COVID now is not COVID then. So like, but I'm not going to go into that. Like this idea is that you cannot avoid illness. Like
Mhm.
you cannot. Like even I'm a self-proclaimed former germaphobe. Like when I was in my teenage years, I definitely had problems with that. Like, washing hands a lot and like avoiding certain things and just kind of germs, things like that. And let me tell you, I'll be honest, I got sick more when I lived that lifestyle than when I did
Mhm.
when I eventually said, screw it. Like I'm tired. I literally got to the point where I was tired of it. And I was just like, nope, it's fine.
Right.
Like you can't avoid that stuff. Like it's a part of life, and you just kind of got to trust your body to process it in certain ways. Now, obviously, in certain situations, like when we had a pandemic going on, or um, in like certain other situations with like really contagious diseases, like when we were probably, were you a lifeguard before?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So same here. So like when dealing with blood, like when we had to do stuff like that, like with bloodborne illnesses, like take that stuff, like that stuff, take seriously. But you can't avoid a common cold, like
Yeah.
that type of thing. It's just you shouldn't be
Mhm.
perpetually afraid of stuff like that. So
Oh,
um,
yeah.
yeah,
There's sorry to go political, but I think if I see a lot of people wearing a face shield alone in their car, that is a warning sign that health is an idol. You know,
yeah. I mean,
that was just
this
recent as 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's one of those things is that um and there's a level of like when you shield yourself from suffering. So in this sense, like we're all trying to avoid suffering at all costs, your body doesn't know how to handle it. So like
Mhm.
if you expose yourself to suffering, your body kind of develops a way of dealing with it.
Yeah,
And
true.
yeah, and this is like with illness. It's like your immune system gets built up when you get sick. Like the more you get sick, the more your immune system knows how to fight.
Yeah.
If
So if you bring your kids, to the playground, let them play in the dirt, that will help them out and build a tolerance. Don't surround themselves with hand sanitizer, but that's another topic for another day.
Yeah. So like this idea is it works both physically and spiritually. Like this
Yeah.
idea is like you can't avoid suffering or you shouldn't because you'll not know how to deal with it. And because as I said, inevitably you are going to face suffering no matter how much you try to avoid it. So you might as well lean into it a little bit so that you know how to deal with it when it comes rather than try to avoid it at all costs and then freak out when it shows up.
Yeah. Speaking
Um
of leaning, God's going to
okay.
stretch you. You got to embrace that suffering. God's going to stretch you. Meet Him in the morning when you're most ready to be limber. It's the most effective way of meeting Him. To kiss.
Uh-oh, I'm
I
dying.
was gonna. Oh no, no. It's the most effective way to take care of our physical bodies, mental capacity, and our thirsty souls.
hmm
Meeting Him.
hmm
So,
hmm Yeah, and it's like I mean this is the temptation that we all have in every aspect of life is pride, and a lot of pride is trying to take control of our lives or like too much control. Like we all should have like a positive attitude about like I can make like a difference in my life, but like
right.
like an internal locus of control, but
Hmm.
we also can't be like overly obsessed with having control. Like we need to
Hmm.
give God control. So like this idea is trying to shield yourself from illness or trying too hard to make yourself the perfect specimen of a body, like is trying to wrestle control from God and like
Hmm.
trying to control your own circumstances instead of just like trusting that if you do like a reasonable best that God will take care of you in the way that he wills.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Step two.
Step two.
Uh, if
Sign two.
health is an idol, think about this. We rarely, if ever, stop training. Uh, once we've picked up speed as far as this goes, it's very hard to stop that wellness, that health and wellness train. I know for one thing, I was binging those types of videos a while back. Soon we can't get through the day without whatever it is that we're trying to, uh, at least we're convinced that will keep us well.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes the opposite way. Like if you're just addicted to ibuprofen all the time in order to like, it's not addressing the problem, it's just putting like a band-aid over it, but like you continue, you get it. But maybe with training, maybe with weightlifting, embrace those days off. you know we strive to achieve greater wellness and to live longer lives, but that's a futile goal. As we
Yeah.
mentioned before, satisfaction from our fitness and our health here on earth is nothing compared to what's coming in the future.
Amen. I mean, there's this thing is it does exercise, does diet, does all this stuff. Does it um distract you or does it keep you from God? Obviously, number one, this is what we've been talking about. So does it distract you from God? Like would you rather miss a prayer session than a training session? Like
Yeah.
that's the type of thing. Is like would you so is it keeping you from God or is it are you thinking so much about this stuff all the time that your thoughts never go to God or like you never pray or you never ask God? So that's important. So two, is it keeping you from other people?
Mhm.
So you always opting to do the most healthy thing rather than spending time with the people you're trying to be healthy for.
Mhm.
So like are you losing time with your family? Are you losing time with your friends because like you're so obsessed with this? And so that I would say that too is just like are you like is it ridding you like you are made for communion with God and communion with other people. And the whole purpose of taking care of our bodies is to make ourselves capable of doing those things.
Mhm.
So if you're not doing those things, then you're not using health for what it's
Mhm.
for. So you're obviously taking if you're keep using health for health's sake, then you're kind of missing the point.
Mhm.
And then three, especially when it comes to like physical activity, it's like what is the purpose of you doing a particular like exercise regimen? Is it just to be healthy or do you actually enjoy it? Now, some people I know don't enjoy exercise and you have to do it purely to get yourself fit. But most times we don't have to worry about those people becoming obsessed with fitness. If they don't like it, then they're not going to become obsessed with it. But this idea is like, are you doing what you do for fun or for health? Like, because I think you need to remember too, like a lot of physical activities are for fun. Playing sports is for
Mhm.
fun and community with other people. Like I swim, yes, it keeps me healthy, but like also I like doing it. Like I
Mhm.
like and I enjoy it. But I know what it's like to lose like that, lose it, and like either be hyper focused on health or hyper focused on like competition and winning and things like that. So like we always have to remember that recreation is primarily for fun and for bringing community, and it's actually really called recreation. So it's like creating you again, but
Mm.
so yeah, I guess that those are just things that I wanted to put out there. Is like is health becoming more important than God, other people, or like the like fun or like the reason that you are active type
Yeah,
of thing.
that's good. Recreation. Never thought of it like that. That's good.
Yeah, so it's like and it's recreation like in a bunch of different ways. It's like it's physical obviously because we're like breaking down our bodies so that they can build themselves back up again stronger, but also like recreating like a lot of relationships and
Mhm.
bonds and with other people. And like there's a
Mhm.
spiritual element to exercise. Like it makes us stronger, makes us more resilient,
Mm.
teaches us to be focused. Like so there's a lot of good lessons that can come from sports for faith if like we don't let it, the train bear a lot of control, as you were
Mhm.
saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Third and final step. Comment if you think of anything more. If health is an idol for you, maybe one thing that like really culminates in it is we don't see the cost. We don't see the cost of our decisions. In Proverbs chapter 25, verse 27, it says, it is not too good to eat too much honey, nor is it honorable to search out matters that are too deep. Too much of anything is too much for me, as the Who would say. Too much of even a good thing is too much. It's good to swap out bad habits for good, sure. Reaching for the banana instead of the cookie. You set the remote down to go for the run, or you soak in the tub with a good book instead of like shopping online. Each thing serves their purpose. But
keep going.
Third time's a charm. That's the last thing I was going to say,
Okay.
but pretty much, yeah. It's easy to start justifying again the need for our purchases when they're good for us, we say.
Yeah. Well, that actually reminds me of another thing. I remember one thing I struggled with when it came to health, that definitely put me in a bad state of mind, like a lot of anxiety, is like the idea, those like California, those Prop 65 warnings, like how this causes cancer. That always used to freak me out, because if I would see that on a product, I'd be like, no, don't touch it. Don't have it. But then I also then realized how many things have that. And it's like, there's a level of, I'm not going to be going to buy lead and putting it all over my house. But there's so much stuff like that can be harmful in certain ways. It's just unavoidable. That's the thing. It's like, it's not worth your peace of mind to try to avoid every single little thing that could kill you, first of all, because you're a broken human being and you are going to die someday. Like, that's the thing. Like, you should avoid the things that are of immediate danger, and immediate and obvious danger. But when it comes to everything else, you just got to be reasonable about it. Like, if being paranoid about avoiding the little things, like I'm saying Prop 65 warnings, or like talking about some of the ingredients that are in food, like that stuff, if it destroys your peace of mind, being paranoid about that stuff, then that's one of the costs that you're talking about, Joe. That's a cost. So is it really making you better off if you're living in fear? And not like, if you're prolonging your life but living it in fear, is it really worth it? Like, that's the type of thing. Is you have to. Now, I'm not saying you don't. As once again, I know I shouldn't have to clarify this so many times. It's like, we're not saying it's like, don't try to be healthy or prolong your life at all. Like, but you have to find the balance. What's the balance between your peace of mind and like your peace of mind, the health of your soul, and then like the welfare of your body? So like, there's a balance in there somewhere. And if you prioritize, like, your priorities in those areas are in not in balance, then you will not be living a healthy life. Because you can even go with the other two. Like, the other two, you can be so preoccupied with your mind, or even your soul. I know it sounds bad to say, but like, you can be so preoccupied with the spiritual that you lose track of like your mind and your body, and those need care too. Like, I mean, someone who only thinks about their soul and that their body's falling to pieces is like, you're not taking care of what God gave you. So it's about finding that balance. So, because costs don't always come, the like cost of physical health, or physical health does not always come with a physical cost. Sometimes the costs are spiritual or mental or emotional, or like relationships, or like, there's a lot of other costs that can come into this. And it's about finding the balance, and like, what's worth this and what's worth that. And I wish we could stand here and tell you exactly what that is, but it's different for every person, and it's not an exact science. So you just got to find out where for you is that balance between those things. So
and I think if you're listening, take solace in the fact that it is a trial and error, and it does require multiple conversations with yourself, oddly enough. But also, one thing that is true, and that will give you a sense of true freedom, not even a sense of true freedom, guarantee true freedom, is your relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. Remember, everyone, that the true source of immortality is not in matter, like that we can have here, but it's in God. Like
Mhm.
our true source of immortality is God, and so you need to be plugged into that. So and try not to let the search for anything else overshadow that. So
Yeah,
um,
the search for like the Holy Grail,
yeah,
um, or yeah, actually, because in the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, they had
mhm,
immortality. Okay,
exactly.
yeah,
But that led to the death of multiple people trying to grasp after that. I think the Holy Grail maybe even be maybe a symbol in his. Obviously, the Holy Grail did exist. Jesus did use a cup
yep,
at the Last Supper, so that thing does exist.
hmm
But I mean, I think in a lot of stories like this quest for the Holy Grail can be representative of people trying to find immortality.
yeah, play God, yeah,
Yeah, and so sometimes, but like this idea is that our true search for so the Grail itself is not the the thing that offers immortality. It's the guy who used it,
yeah.
the
It's
guy
it's
who drank
that's
from it.
that's what we think is the prize. Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah, yeah. The prize truly is God.
Hmm
So don't let don't let anything else tell you any different.
Well, the more
Um,
you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out from my own brain. I've never read any historical studies on that, but
Yeah.
you know, it's makes sense because in a lot of these stories then too, like Indiana Jones, people lose their lives trying to save them. Oh well, here's a quote to end things with, people, because in the Bible Jesus says those who wish to save their lives will lose it. Some translations say those who wish to sustain their lives will lose it, but
Right.
those who lose their life for my sake will find it.
Hmm.
So if you try to overly cling to your life, like in a way that is idolatrous, as we're saying, is that you will, like, in a lot of ways you'll lose it, and we've been
Yeah.
talking about that through fear or the breaking down of relationships, like your peace of mind going away, like this, just loss of peace. But like if you lose your life for God's sake, so if you give yourself to God, if you surrender yourself to God, if you give your life to God, then you will find it.
Yeah.
So
Well said.
Joe, how was your week?
Week was good. There had been a lot more free time that I had allocated for myself last week, and I would have to say Thursday, a couple days ago, that was actually the first true moment. It was around like 8 o'clock at night. I felt true silence that I hadn't felt in like months. I was in my apartment just staring up at the ceiling, and it was glorious. Just like, even if that was 5 minutes, I got a little bit more than that because I wanted to do a couple other tasks, but that was just so, so nice. And now that's even getting warmer, I'm spending a lot more time on the deck too. Um, this past weekend, my girlfriend had come up, spent some time with my family, had some pizza, spent time with the dogs, came up, we went axe throwing, which was awesome. Um, I hadn't done
Did you
that
get
in
the
about,
bullseye?
yes, I did. And it was
Look at you,
glorious.
man.
It was
Ready for that
glorious.
zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. She felt self-conscious at first because she got it once and then just couldn't get it for the rest of the time until like we tweaked it at the very end. And then she was doing it like one hand and like in a row, like who Lord of the Rings is calling this girl. Anyway, but then we what else did we do? We watched a movie and I fell asleep, and then basically played guitar at church, and she went there for the first time, which was awesome. And I love playing guitar for church. I get caught up in myself a lot of the times when I'm playing, that I hunker down and think of my mistakes. But I know that it's for a higher purpose, and she had to remind me of that. And then we went out on a double date with a friend, also on worship team, and yeah, that closed out the weekend.
Nice. Sounds
Yeah.
like a good, restful, but like restfully full week. So compared to your last week, which you were talking about was like crazy hectic.
Yeah.
So finally glad that the rest is like starting to set in.
Starting to, yeah.
Yeah.
Hoping that trend does continue. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a good week. So this weekend, I went home to see my family for a little bit. Got to hang out with my mom and my dad, which is always good. I hadn't been home in a while, or I've been to my to Danville, which is where I'm from, in quite a while. So it was really good to see them. We just like talked for a really, really long time, which is always good. Just catching up, just talking about stuff, talking about life and job. We talk about faith, like a bunch of stuff. So it's really awesome to be there. Then on Saturday, I had a lot of little chores to do then in Danville. That was actually kind of the reason I was in Danville. So like I get spiritual direction from the priest that is at the parish in Danville. So at my former home parish. So I go there every 6 weeks or so just to talk to him about what my life's like and, what's on my heart and everything when I think God's and discussing what God is calling me to do or what God's trying to tell me and a bunch of stuff. So that's always really good. He's really awesome. I'm really glad I have him as my spiritual director. At the same time, I also had car issues. Weeks ago I had car issues and got taken back. The original dealership is in Danville, where I got it from. So they're taking care of it. And so I had to go there. I'd been driving my dad's car for a really long time, so I had to go there. It's still things that need to be worked out with my car. So I had to go there to get like a loaner. And so now I'm driving a loaner around. It's like a pretty nice 2017 Ford Fusion, though. It's more updated than my current car or my car. So it feels like a space car with all of its nifty bells and whistles. So I had to do that. I was getting a suit tailored for a wedding later this year. So that was also important. But yeah, so got a lot of stuff done. And then I headed off to Scranton, where I got to see the crew again. So the college crew, plus a few other people. The crew's grown a little bit in Scranton to include other people that we've met since. So we had this is interesting. So what we did was we had a PowerPoint party. And I know people listening are probably rolling their eyes, being like, what the heck is that? So it's exactly what it sounds like. Everyone makes a PowerPoint and presents it. It's a lot funner than it sounds because most people, it was a good mix of a lot of different things. Some people went educational. Most people did not. Most people went humorous and funny. I personally did a PowerPoint on PowerPoint. So, but it was like a total farce PowerPoint. So I made up of a fake history of PowerPoint. And then I gave bogus tips on how to make a good PowerPoint. It was literally essentially the opposite of everything you should do in PowerPoint.
I think I remember you telling me this last week. You were going to include my pictures in there.
You were included, sir. Either half the crew that knew you, they're like, "Why is Buddy Joe in this PowerPoint?" And then the other half were like, "Who the heck is that?"
That's good. That's good.
Well, because the one slide I put you on was this idea. The tip was always make sure to include pictures and lots of pictures and graphs. But then I also, as a sub point, I said they need to be interesting rather than relevant. So you were up there with some random graph. I don't even remember what was on the graph, but this idea of so total farce, total hysterics.
Show it to me after, please.
Oh, I will. If I still have, I still have it somewhere. It was really funny. And then we had what were some other examples? So another one that was funny. My best friend, my former roommate, he did one on stairs, on the danger of stairs. So he just did this really, really serious, really serious, but it was actually just supposed to be super funny. I was I could not breathe. I was laughing so hard, just based on what makes a set of stairs up to code and what makes them dangerous and all of the things that can happen on stairs. And he was doing demonstrations on the stairs near the presentation area. It was hilarious.
That's good.
Some educational ones. I found out the difference between Mennonite and Amish people. That was one of our friends did that. Another one of the girls did a presentation on why her boyfriend is always wrong, which was very convincing, actually, believe it or not. So I won't reveal names so that everyone doesn't know that he's wrong. He, on the other hand, he had a PowerPoint that he had an AI. Had an AI make a PowerPoint, and then he didn't look at it before he started. So then he just presented this random PowerPoint to see what it was like. It was about the 5 most important people in history, but they were all completely made up, and all the stuff that they did was completely made up.
That's good.
It was ridiculous. And then we had one guy who presented on, because he's a teacher and he didn't have time to make one, so he like presented one that he had done in class that's about like adaptation of animals. So like the idea of camouflage and like how like animals adapt, like prey adapts to have camouflage so that they can hide from predators, like things like that. So it was more like he was like, here's a picture, where's the animal? And we're all like, because it's taken us like 30 seconds, like where is it?
I find it, yeah.
And when we found it, we got candy, which is cool. So yeah, overall, so that I won't go into all of them, but that was just like the kind of the flavor. So it was really awesome. It was really fun. It was good. It's always just good to see everyone. Then came back yesterday and played in a pickleball tournament. That went okay. We played in like the advanced group, and we lost both times. It was double elimination, but we made it respectable. So it was good. It was good.
Didn't get into any fights.
Well,
oh no,
no. Not any physical altercations. There's always like challenging each other's line calls and things like that, but it's the heat of the moment. But overall, it was good. It ended up fine. Yeah. So that was and then just went to mass and enjoyed the rest of the night, kind of relaxed, and so that was my weekend. So it was good. It was good. It was really good to see people, good to be active, going places. So yeah, that was it. That was my week.
But I will say that loaner car situation, that must have really sucked. That even though you get the car, like it's not yours.
Yeah, I mean, there's part of it like I'm frustrated with my car at this point. Like it's been in the shop multiple times, so I'm probably going to be in the market for another car. So if anyone listening has any suggestions, feel free to hit us up as to what's good and reliable, and I will not have to take to the shop multiple times in its lifetime. So yeah, but it's fine. It's fine. It's not winter, so my car's normally 4-wheel drive. So I would be more upset if it was wintertime and now I didn't have this. But it is what it is. So it should be another week or two, and we should have it back. Yeah. So what we want you all to do right now is like and subscribe to our channel, Seizing Valor. If you would like, you can leave us some comments about our video, or if you would like to be more private, you can send us some emails at seizingvalor@gmail.com. But either way, follow us and interact with us on our channels. We are on Spotify and YouTube. The more you interact with us, the more you press those buttons, the better we are on the algorithm, so that we can get this to more people who might need to hear what we have to say, or what God is trying to say to them, hopefully through us. So you can also check us out on Instagram. Our handle is @Seizing Valor. So we post some content on there every once in a while, kind of some condensed versions of what you see here, and other content. So check that out. Other than that, as we said, you can email us with any questions, comments, concerns, queries, or just to say, hey, we like that too. Prayer intentions, we also like those. Pray us out, Joe.
All right, let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you so much for this day, Lord. Anyone who's listening on the other end of their screen, thank you so much for their presence and for getting to this point, Lord. And thank you so much for the gift of health, Lord, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, as a lot of our conversation had delved into. Thank you so much for the ability to go through this day and the opportunity to be healthy. But like we said during our conversation, there comes a point where too much of something and too much of an emphasis on something is too much for me, too much for you, too much for anybody who's listening. It's too much to make it as an idol, Lord. It's too much to put an emphasis on something that clearly is fleeting, Lord, and leaves us, Lord. It's not meant to be, even though we try to play, we try to be like you, Lord, and that ultimately will fail. And I pray that more and more people will find solace in that fact, Lord, and know that this isn't a constricting message for anybody who's listening, Lord. but it's a freeing message, Lord, a message of freedom, that we don't have to be constrained by a lot of these blockages, Lord, of health and wellness. While they can be good, Lord, they can be incredibly like a jail. Lord, help us, help to give myself, Zach, Josh too, and anyone who's listening, that sense of perspective, Lord, and know that we would, God, find freedom only in you and your Son, Lord. In your most precious and holy name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for attending, and that we will all see you next time.
Later.